Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Magdalene Interview Series. I'm so excited today to have with me Angelica Buenrostro and the conversation that we're about to have, and to invite you in to drop in with us. And before we went live, we've had all kinds of hilarious technical difficulties, but we have overcome them.
For now, yes, we have.
and and had a really sweet moment to just drop into our breath and invite in the presence of Mary Magdalene, and just kind of the prayer and intention that those of you who listen and tune in today will get something out of this that will bless your life. And so before we have our lovely Angelica introduce herself, I just want to drop in and name that I'm doing this in partnership with the fact that I'm leading a retreat to the south of France in September, the Magdalene Pleasure Pilgrimage. And I wanted to cultivate these conversations in the same way that the energy will be held at the retreat, that it's not a lecture, it's not me teaching everybody, it's everybody coming in with their own wisdom, coming in with their own juice and their own magic, and getting to share in a space like that among people who are doing really cool shit in the world. And we know as women that when we take time to draw away and fill up that well within us, my goal is that we will leave that space just full and ready to serve and ready to be in our creativity in even deeper capacities than we have before. So, with all of that said, and without further ado, I'd like to introduce Angelica. Thank you for joining me today on this conversation.
Oh, thanks for having me, Melissa. I'm excited to be here.
Yay! Can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. My name is actually Angelica, but it's spelled like Angelica, so totally fine. Everybody says it that way. And I'm just a person. I'm a person. I really kind of haven't had a real title in a long time, on purpose, because it's just been so dynamic, and the things that I have been doing have been dynamic. But ultimately, I'm somebody who is just a seeker, somebody who always wanted to understand things. I'm a mom. Um, I'm I've been in Wisconsin for probably, let's see now, 30 years or so, but I spent my time between California and Wisconsin growing up. So um, I really don't claim any one place as home, but this is pretty much home base for me.
Oh, that's amazing. I feel so embarrassed because I asked you how to pronounce your last name and not your first
That's okay. No worries.
name.
No worries at all.
Grace.
Mhm.
Beautiful. Well, let's just jump in here. I would love to hear, when did this Magdalene energy or presence start to feel like something you weren't just learning, but that you were embodying, or that was a part of who you are?
Yeah, I mean, the journey to where I'm sitting right now has been very chaotic, very much ebbs and flows, as most people have attested to, right? The journey to the inner part of us is very dynamic. I keep using that word, but that's what it feels like because it's always changing. And so, growing up as a kid, my background is Catholic. I was raised as a non-practicing Catholic. We went during holidays and when we were at Grandma and Grandpa's house. Um, but my dad's side always had, like, different customs that they would do as well, in addition to whatever religious context. So growing up, I always had like a very strong sense of the symbolism in Catholicism, and I always found a lot of comfort in that, even if I didn't fully understand the religion all the time or what I was being taught. um, and I especially found solace and peace and just this different feeling in my body, kind of meditate on the Virgin Mary. And so, um, once I was an adult, I always carried that with me, even though I left the church and I went into a more evangelical path. Um, and I started, kind of digging into the scriptures and seeing this Mary pop up again as Jesus's friend, and then again as the first person who witnesses the resurrection. And I had this really weird thought, and I was like, what if they're all the same Mary? And I'm like, I wonder if I'm the only person who thinks that. I could not ask that question in the circles I was in. I would have been looked at like a crazy person. So I just did some research, and this was probably gosh, maybe early 2010s ish, I would say, where I just started to research and ask those big questions like, why why is she in here but not in here? Like, what about the rest of the story? And I guess something that's probably relevant to the rest of our conversation is going to be that I am a hyperlexic person. I love words. I always have. I started reading the paper when I was 3, but not always comprehending. And that's something that's very common with people who are hyperlexic. The comprehension isn't there, but because people are like, oh, look at my kid, they're such a great reader, they don't think to stop and ask those questions. And so for me, language was something I was always picking up, whether it was at home or in my community. We lived behind a Vietnamese family who totally different on the inside. We had the same kind of apartments, but in California, but it was totally different customs. They were eating on the floor and with their hands, and it was just I just loved it. And so, picking up those different words from different languages, it became very easy for me to ask those questions as I'm reading through the scriptures more deeply. Like, okay, but what about this? And that's where Magdalene kind of came out. Was like, this woman is prominent, but why is there so little about her? And that led me down the trail of the lost gospels and the Gospel of Mary.
Oh, isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
And, gosh, you were saying that so it's been like over 15 years that you started asking these questions. Isn't it interesting, like, how something so seemingly insignificant, like, could be this hinge that just like changes your life?
Oh my gosh, I would have never imagined. I would have never imagined asking those questions. First of all, it took me a long time to like get the courage to ask the question to myself. Because as you know, like our perception is so rooted in whatever we know. And because we are human beings who are attracted to similar things and similar people, similar faces, customs, it's very normal for people to live inside of their, their spheres of perception until they are until it's safe enough to ask the question, what about this? Why is this different? And I don't think you can do that. At least I've not been able to do that successfully without being in relationship to whatever it is I'm trying to understand. And so I knew that if I wanted to answer this question for myself, who was Mary really? I needed to be in relationship to her. I needed to understand her as a woman, as a character in this book, because it's just so surface as to what I believe through, the experiential understanding that I have now. Um, she was just so much more than what is in the book. She was so much more than what she left in her writings. She was so much more, and you can just, I mean, your imagination can run wild, but when you look at the world today and the world that Mary was in after Jesus, was buried and ascends to heaven and everything else, it's like she experienced displacement, she experienced scrutiny, she experienced betrayal, not just of her heart and her love and what she thought or maybe imagined life would be like with her partner Yeshua, but she experienced the betrayal of a community that she thought were on her side, that she couldn't believe that they wouldn't believe her, right? And was hurt. I mean, you could hear it in her words in the Gospel of Mary, where she's really hurt that they don't believe her. And I just identified so much with that, and I thought, there is something more here for me to understand about myself as a mirror to Mary, and that's really where things got little more complex for me in my life.
And even as you talk about her, it's that relationship is tangible. It's very palpable. So, like, I want to thank you for your heart and your, I want to say, devotion to this call, this little pull that you kept, and the courage that it took for you to actually start asking the questions and doing the seeking. Because when you talk about her, it's like I can hear how massive this is for you.
Yeah, and that's really how it felt too, and I had never I was always a reader. If you look at pictures of me throughout the years of a kid, I just always have a book in my hand. Even as like a 3-year-old, I've got books like on my head. Like, what am I doing? I love reading, and I love to be able to put myself in the context. And that's what I think I love about books so much, is in literature in general, is just being able to like have the full picture but in words. So it's not necessarily painting a picture, but the author is in words. And with Mary, it was very easy for me to identify because I had those universal experiences in my life as a woman who allowed herself to love, who had allowed herself to see people in different lights. I grew up in a family that was very, I would say, normal in terms of we had struggles. We had things that were not perfect, and not just not perfect, but not black and white. You couldn't say that person is bad because that person is struggling with X, Y, and Z, because I saw the side of them that was very warm and caring and nurturing. And I knew that when they were stressed, they may change, they may choose something else. But I always saw people in that very multifaceted way. And I think that's where Mary really resonated with me. And a specific scripture that I remember hearing as a kid, it was during Easter, whenever Mary was the first person to see Jesus, at the tomb. And I have my highlighted Bible here because I have to revisit it every now and then because you talk about the devotion. But when I read this the first time this way, I think that's really when it changed everything. But I had been reading it that way for a while. It's just it takes a while, right? We have to take time to process what it is that we're intellectualizing, because we really need it to kind of permeate through our whole body and our whole being. But when she thinks that he's the gardener and that they've taken his body, this part is just so beautiful, and I hope it's okay that I'm reading this really quick.
Absolutely.
Um, she was weeping, and when you think of weeping, you think of just this sobbing and this desperation is the word that I think of, and I could identify with that immediately. I thought, man, my whole life has been that way, just desperate for changes and different ways of being. But he asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? And who is it that you're looking for?" And thinking he was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." It's like this is a woman whose partner was buried and now he's missing. And she, tell me, it's like you got to put yourself in that, that frame of mind of like, tell me where he is. I'll go get him myself. I don't care if I have to drag him. And then Jesus said to her, Mary. And even in the canonical gospels of this Bible that has been so washed with surface and rules and authorities and patriarchal notions, that one word, Mary, it's hard for me to even read it out loud because it's so potent. It's so, you recognize that you recognize love, right? And she turned toward him and cried out in Aramaic, Rabboni, which means teacher. And this was obviously a term of endearment in their culture, meaning master or teacher or guide. You are my guide. You are my other part. And I see you. I see a fragment of you now that I didn't see just 5 minutes ago when I thought you were the gardener. How beautiful that you can be so lost and desperate and hopeless, and in an instant see things differently. And it's everything that you wanted, everything that you needed to have at that moment. And it was her vision of Jesus.
I just want to invite a deep breath in that. That was just,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah.
And for those of us who have been raised reading the Bible, like I've heard that a million times, but hearing it from your perspective was really beautiful. So thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm fascinated also to see that you are still very excited about her presence in the Bible, and you also have this other mystical, like, understanding. So I would love to hear, because I'm meeting people, I'm having conversations, and I'm finding people kind of in two camps. It's like I'm all about Mary Magdalene and she's from the Bible, or I'm all about Mary Magdalene and we appreciate what it says in the Bible, but really, here's all this other stuff that I'm super excited about. And I'm hearing you kind of taking this whole picture. And I just love to hear more about kind of like, what question do I even want to ask? Like, when did um when did some of the deeper maybe hidden stuff that we're not even 100% sure exactly, like, when did that start to come through for you, and how have you been in relationship with that?
Yeah. So going through a lot of different, just crazy experiences as an adult with a young family. I was married for 14 years. I've been divorced for 7, but I was going through that transition of trying to understand, is this marriage salvageable? Is this something that we can actually fix? And if not, what does that mean for me? And I was at the point where many of us get to, sometimes many times in our lives, like I have, where you're on the floor and you're like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. I have tried everything. I've done everything that logic tells me to. I've taken all the advice. I've heard all the wisdom, and I still don't know what to do. And I'll never forget, um, I was walking with my headphones listening to, I would just listen to sermons all the time. And it was a Baptist sermon, which is really funny because it's not funny. It was very literal. And I remember the speaker, the pastor who was talking about it, he was talking about ha- having an experiential relationship with God. And he talked about, I think it's Psalm 34, where David says, taste and see the Lord is good. Blessed is he who takes refuge in him. And I said, man, I need some refuge. I know I need some refuge. I don't know what I'm doing, but taste and see. And I was like, they say I can like trust the Bible, right? The people at church tell me that I can take God's word and it's literal. So let me literally apply this to my life and experience the things that I'm curious about, and not in a irresponsible way, obviously, but just I didn't know so much, right? I didn't know so much of how I was wired and why I was the way I was. I had been in therapy since I was 14 years old, in and out of therapy. I felt like it wasn't helping. I felt like nothing had helped me overcome this sense of sorrow that I had inside of myself, this sense of like something is missing. And hearing that sermon, it gave me some sort of a green light in my body to say, you need to figure out more. You need to go back to the counselor, you need to go back to a therapist, go to a psychiatrist and find out what's going on. What's the worst that can happen? And I hooked up with a therapist who was kind of like experimenting, or it was just kind of new for him to do the biofeedback, brain biofeedback, neuro biofeedback. And he was like, your theta waves are very, very high. He's like, they're very similar to what you would see in Buddhist monk, basically, who's meditating all day. And that was part of my routine, was to meditate every single morning on the word, literally, and look at it in the context of the word. And I'm getting to my point. It's kind of taking me a while, but my point is that when I had that experience of that green light, that kind of like aha moment, I was very honest for the first time in my life with myself and with a counselor, with a therapist, in saying, I don't know what you mean. I knew how to say the right answers to get what I needed to get out of life. I
Mm.
really did. I learned really quickly as a kid. Um, and I also had a lot of privilege as a kid. Growing up, I'm a first generation Mexican, or first generation American on my dad's side. He's from Mexico. My mom is American. I'm my skin is light. People would not know that I'm, who I am. But I just, I really, I didn't know who I was. And he asked me a question. He was teaching me different methods of meditation. And he said, when you are in this scene that he had described, and he asked me some questions. He said, what do you see? Where are you? What's your vantage point? That's what he said. I said, well, I'm just watching myself. I'm watching myself, and I'm watching my now ex-husband um, have an argument, but I'm not feeling anything. And he's like, okay, that's called a disassociation. I'm like, is that bad? He's like, well, it's probably not good for everything. And I had no clue that my entire life, that was a coping mechanism that was automatic for me. And so that was in 2017. Um, and I thought, okay, I have nothing else to lose. I've already told this therapist, I'm so smart, right? I know everything because I've been in therapy for, 15, 20 years, whatever. But now he's told me something that now I have to question everything again. You know what I mean? It was exciting. It was scary. It was profound. It was, gosh, I just, I'm a very, um, I'm a very critical person in terms of like when you tell me something is true, I need evidence, right? I don't want to just take someone's word for it. Help me understand how that's real. And so it took me a long time to accept the fact that I had not been feeling emotions in my body somatically, truly, for most of my life.
Wow.
And yeah, yeah, as a mom of 4 kids, the only times I would feel emotion is when my kids were experiencing something, and that was beautiful, but I couldn't do that myself. And so I met with him, weekly for 8 months, uh, asked him to do order CAT scans, order this, like, let me go to the psychiatrist and see what meds I need, because I'm pretty sure I'm crazy. Like, it was that, intense of a shift for me. And knowing that about myself, I knew that whatever people had perceived of me prior to that moment, how could it be how could it be accurate? It's accurate for them, but it wasn't accurate for me. I didn't even know myself.
Mhm.
And that opened up a world of possibilities in which I then knew nothing. And that was really scary at the time.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
knew nothing. I didn't know. And I think of it like social media, right? When we're talking about Mary of the Bible, and then the Mary Magdalene that a mystic would experience in devotion and relation and ritual. Um, I think of the Bible as like a Facebook page, right? This is the surface level of what other people saw or they reported. I always like to say reported because we don't really know.
Right.
This is just the narrative that has been given to us. Um, how they reported her was through their own lens of bias and their own lens of perception. And so, how can you truly take that for what it is when it's already being filtered through several people, several different eyes, several different lives? Um, I had to do it for myself through my own experience, through my own wisdom and the things that I had known to be true. And so that's kind of where they merge together. And for me, the Bible is a it's a good way to, I guess, I don't know if it's even a good way, but it was the way that I entered into the story.
Mhm.
And I always say the only way out of a story is through a story, and you have to enter the story with someone if you're trying to help them out of it. And the story that I was in was that I was broken. And my therapist, who was, I think, based on our conversation, he had been Christian and, had deconstructed his faith. Um, he went there with me, even though it wasn't comfortable for him and he didn't necessarily have all the right answers. Um, he was a very great example, first example of somebody who went into the story with me and fully accepted and embraced my reality, regardless of how nuts I felt. He's like, it's okay. And it was just that weekly affirmation of, it's okay, Angelica, it's okay. That's okay. You're okay. We're talking through it. And the technique that he taught me were somatic therapies that were very helpful, in just kind of getting into that space of, dropping into a space in my body where it's like, oh, I feel it here now. And then I feel it there. And, the rest is history. You start doing yoga, you start learning different techniques, and all of a sudden you just have this, you do a hip stretch and all this emotion comes out. You're like, what the hell was that? And it feels like magic. Certainly it did for me.
Wow. Oh, that journey is so relatable. And I love that. I feel similar to you that my relationship with Mary Magdalene is an element of what has helped me drop more into my body. And I think that my previous religions, and just only knowing to revere a sky god had me always looking outside of myself. In fact,
Right.
I even think dissociation, I think I thought that was like a helpful way to be, not really consciously. Nobody was using the word like you said, but it was like, oh, look at, I have this perspective and I don't have to get so emotionally involved, or or whatever. And then I feel like this relationship with Magdalene is like, maybe the body is where God speaks. Maybe that is like the whole point. We are human. We have a
Yes.
body. And I am so grateful because, like you, I'm just like, I am able to experience joy in this body because I did that work. So, oh, I'm just seeing you in that.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I completely would, I can relate. I can echo exactly what you said. And I think, for anybody watching who's maybe, um more of, I don't know if cynic is the right word, but I can tend to be like, okay, but like really, what does that feel like? I will say that there are stretches of time when I don't feel joy, when I can't feel joy. There's a chemical imbalance in my brain that I take medication for to help me produce serotonin and dopamine and all those elements that we need to be happy. Um, but at the same time, uh, it allowed me to pinpoint and have a better set of tools to understand where is it coming from and if it made sense or not. Because sometimes when we have traumatic experiences, or we grow up with many traumatic experiences, and we develop, what is called PTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, any little thing can trigger us, and we don't always know if that's our body signaling, yes, you need to, go the other direction, or actually we can lean into this safely now because we've done that work. So the amount of feelings that I have in my body at any one time can be so different, but I couldn't even feel it before. That was the biggest thing until I met Mary, until I met myself in Mary. And I allowed myself to not think of God in a way that was like this overbearing, like, you better do it right, otherwise you're going to hell. Um, and until I started thinking differently about why would a God give me these ideas, because I was very creative. I was studying the science of creativity and perception at the time and of my divorce. And um, I thought, why would God give me this brain if he didn't want me to let it flow? If he didn't want me to let it explore these ideas that he supposedly has given me, right? And that was very impactful for me because I was able to allow myself, and what in psychology is called reality testing, because at the time that I was seeing this therapist for 8 months, I really was concerned about my mental health. I thought, I'm seeing all of these coincidences popping up in my life, and you pray these really deep prayers. Some of us, do um more ritualistic chanting, whatever it is that you do to get in tune with your source. um I was praying these really deep prayers, and all of a sudden I was seeing evidence of it in my reality, and I was freaking out. I was like, this is kind of cool the first few times, but now it's popping up all the time. And I didn't realize that I was actually reinforcing that kind of chemical pattern that was happening by continuing to meditate and continuing to let that energy flow through me. As uncomfortable as it was, I was doing things like yoga, running, swimming, even something that would give me, I just felt like a puppy that needed to run laps. It was so much coming out of me at once. And allowing myself for the first time to really say to myself, you deserve to feel good. I didn't even know what that meant. What does feel good mean? I said, I don't know, to myself. I said, I don't know, but it feels like this, whatever that was in the moment. And I would catalog that in my brain and say, okay, this is something I can take with me and understand, maybe not now, but I'm going to remember that this was the moment. And so I've journaled pretty much since I was 6 years old. Um, but this is the moment when I felt this shift. And, looking back over the years at my journals, I can easily spot the patterns and tell you I was this age when I overcame this. And you know what I mean? When I understood this. And that's not really necessary, but it was helpful for me to reflect back and see that, because I can talk about it now um, with less, pauses. I used to get so emotional and so worked up. Even being able to sit here with you right now is a huge step from 7 years ago.
That's so beautiful. And I love, as we kind of bring this conversation to a close, I want to like bring us back to right where you started, where you said, I started having these questions about Mary, and it was scary for me to even speak the questions. And now you're on a social media interview live, sharing your whole journey with such an open heart. And I just want to like honor and say, I see you. Look at
Oh,
that
thanks.
journey.
Thank you. Thank
So
you. Thank you.
beautiful.
No, thank you. It was with a lot of people. That's the other thing I think Magdalene has for us to learn, is that, her story didn't end when Yeshua was gone and she lost her partner, her teacher, her Rabboni. It wasn't over when she went into the cave. It wasn't over when she met her people in France. She lived a good life, I think, I believe. And I can't imagine her not living it to the fullest extent of her ability in each moment. And so that's kind of what I take with me. And if I can offer that to other people in relationship with them, that's kind of where that's where the next step is for me. And I know that, and I felt the nudge for a long time, but I had to make some really difficult decisions in my life to be able to do that, like most of us do when we're embarking on any type of work like this. It's like, oh, this isn't logical. And I think I'm a little bit more logical than I should be at times, but it definitely is a journey.
Hmm. Well, thank you for all that you've shared in this. I think of all of the interviews that I've done so far, this was the most like practical, tangible,
Yes.
Magdalene. Like it was awesome. I'm like,
I
yes,
love
yes,
that.
yes. Because that's what I see in her is that she's so relatable, and there's really cool rabbit holes we can go down. I mean, they made the Da Vinci Code for crying out loud. There's some cool rabbit holes that we can go down.
Yes. Yes.
At the end of the day, it's like, how does this really?
How
And
can I
I guess
apply it in real life? Yeah.
is, it does. It really does. And so just, yeah, thank you for the journey that you've walked. Share with us how people can lean in and get more connected with you if they resonated with this interview or were inspired by you, Angelica. And Angelica. I'm going to get
It's okay. It's all right. There's still people that probably call me Angelica, have known me all my life, so it's okay. But on Instagram and TikTok, I'm on there as Ange.Bueno. So yeah, we can put the link underneath, but I'm on TikTok and Instagram. You can reach out to me via DM anywhere.
awesome. Thank you again so much.
Yeah.
And thanks to those of you who have tuned in with us today. I hope that you're enjoying these interviews as much as I am. I just feel so like nurtured and fed and very lucky to get to be in this seat and hearing so many rich stories. I think what I'd love to end today with was something that you said so quickly: when I got to know Mary, and therefore when I got to know me. And that has been a common thread through every single one, that our devotion to Mary is, she never is like, she's just like, here's the mirror, send it right back. This is about devotion to yourself, and that's the space that I intend to hold as well and just invite people into. So thank
Beautiful.
you again. Thank you,
Yeah. Thank you.
Lori, and we'll see you all again next time on the Magdalene Interview Series.
Thanks so much for having me, Melissa.